In the realm of ancient texts, few creatures have captured the imagination of theologians, scholars, and mystics like the Leviathan. This enigmatic figure appears in several books of the Bible, leaving behind a trail of curiosity and awe. Is it merely a metaphor for chaos? Or is it a literal beast, a monstrous creature that once roamed the seas and skies, forever etched into the mythic history of the Hebrew people? Today, we will dive into the world of the Leviathan, its biblical mentions, its symbolism, and its lasting impact on religious thought. But first, we must ask the question, what exactly is the Leviathan? The Leviathan is described in the Bible as a monstrous sea creature, an ancient being beyond human comprehension. Its earliest reference can be found in the book of Job, where it is introduced as a creature of unimaginable power and terror. Job, a man of immense suffering, asks God about the nature of evil, suffering, and divine justice. In response, God begins to describe various majestic creatures, among them the Leviathan, as a reminder of the vastness and the mystery of the divine creation. In Job 41, the creature is depicted as a fearsome and indomitable beast, untamable by human hands. God asks Job, "Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook, or tie down its tongue with a rope?" A rhetorical question, of course. The Leviathan cannot be subdued. It is beyond the grasp of any mortal. In the book of Job, the Leviathan is also described as a creature of unimaginable strength. The passage continues to depict its immense size and terrifying nature, with references to its scales that are impenetrable, its fiery breath, and its power to instill fear. It is said that no weapon forged by human hands could pierce its tough exterior, and no man could conquer it. It is described as a creature so mighty that even the greatest warriors of the earth would be helpless before it. But is the Leviathan simply a mythical creature, or does it represent something more? To truly understand its role, we must consider its symbolic significance. In the context of ancient Hebrew thought, the Leviathan is not just a physical beast, but a symbol of chaos, destruction, and the untamable forces of nature. The ocean, in many ancient cultures, represented the unknown, the primordial abyss from which life and danger alike sprang. To the people of Israel, the Leviathan was a creature that emerged from this abyss, embodying the chaotic, unpredictable forces that existed before creation. Some scholars argue that the Leviathan represents the chaos that God must overcome during the act of creation itself. In Genesis, the earth is described as being formless and void, and God's first act is to separate the waters above from the waters below. The Leviathan, then, could be seen as a remnant of that primordial chaos, a being that was subdued but not destroyed, kept in check by divine power. This symbolic interpretation of the Leviathan is supported in several parts of the Old Testament. In Psalms 74:14, God is described as having defeated the Leviathan. "It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave it as food to the creatures of the desert." Here, the creature is not just a terrifying monster, but a symbol of the chaos that God has subdued in order to bring order to the world. But the Leviathan is not only a creature of destruction. In some ancient texts, it is portrayed as part of a greater cosmic order. In Jewish mysticism, the Leviathan is sometimes seen as a creature that will play a role in the end times, a powerful being whose eventual defeat will mark the ultimate triumph of good over evil. This apocalyptic vision is found in the book of Isaiah. In Isaiah 27:1, it is prophesied that in the day of the Lord will punish with his sword, his great and powerful sword, Leviathan the gliding serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent. He will slay the monster of the sea. Here, the Leviathan is linked to the final judgment, symbolizing the last vestige of chaos that must be vanquished before the world can enter into its final, peaceful state. The defeat of the Leviathan, in this sense, represents not only the triumph of divine order over chaos, but also the fulfillment of God's ultimate plan for creation, the restoration of peace, order, and harmony in the world. For the ancient Israelites, the image of the Leviathan was both a fearsome reminder of the uncontrollable forces in the world and a symbol of God's power to overcome these forces. It was a symbol of the struggle between order and chaos, a theme that resonates throughout many religious texts and cultures. But what is the deeper meaning of this struggle? Why does God choose to create such a terrifying creature, and what can we learn from its presence in the Bible? To answer these questions, we must look beyond the creature itself and explore the broader theological context in which it appears. The Leviathan's story is part of a larger narrative about the relationship between God and creation, about the nature of evil and suffering, and about the ultimate hope for redemption. Perhaps, in the end, the Leviathan is not just a symbol of chaos or destruction, but a reminder of the inherent tension in the world between creation and destruction, between good and evil. It is a reminder that the world, in all its beauty and terror, is ultimately governed by a power greater than ourselves. And perhaps, just as the Leviathan will one day be defeated, so too will the forces of darkness and disorder in our own lives, if we have the faith to trust in the divine plan. But for now, the Leviathan remains an ancient mystery, a supernatural creature whose legacy continues to intrigue and inspire. As we delve deeper into its story, we will uncover the ways in which this creature's significance has evolved over time, and how its symbolism continues to resonate in our understanding of the divine struggle between order and chaos. But the story of the Leviathan doesn't end in ancient texts. This mythical being carries with it an enduring legacy that stretches far beyond the Bible, into the realms of prophecy, culture, and even modern theology. In the ancient Hebrew scriptures, the Leviathan is associated with the end of days, an apocalyptic vision that sees the monster's destruction as a precursor to a new age of peace and divine order. This theme is especially prominent in the book of Isaiah, where we encounter one of the most striking prophecies about the Leviathan. Isaiah 27:1 is one of the clearest examples of the Leviathan's role in the apocalyptic future. The passage reads, "In that day, the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce and great and mighty sword, Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." The imagery here is unmistakable. A mighty, chaotic creature, now symbolizing the forces of evil, will be defeated in the final reckoning of humanity. This passage, which envisions the destruction of the Leviathan, symbolizes not only the end of chaos and evil, but the dawning of a new era. The defeat of Leviathan is meant to usher in a time of peace, a time when the forces of darkness are permanently overthrown by the power of the divine. It is a moment of cosmic justice, where the divine order prevails over the wild and unpredictable forces that have long reigned in the world. But what does this final battle between order and chaos mean in the broader context of the Bible's teachings? The destruction of the Leviathan, as described in Isaiah, is often interpreted as a metaphor for the ultimate triumph of God's sovereignty over the forces of evil. For the ancient Israelites, the world was a place of constant struggle between good and evil, order and disorder. The Leviathan embodied that struggle, an ever-present reminder of the forces that threatened to undo the created order. By defeating the Leviathan, God would show his ultimate power and bring about the restoration of harmony in the world. But the story of Leviathan's defeat is not just about the end of an era of chaos. It also carries with it the promise of a new creation. In Jewish tradition, there is a belief that once the Leviathan is slain, its flesh will be served as a feast for the righteous, a divine banquet marking the victory of God over evil. This vision of a divine banquet is drawn from later Jewish texts, particularly the Talmud and other rabbinic literature. These texts suggest that the destruction of the Leviathan will not only rid the world of chaos, but will also serve as a moment of ultimate communion between God and his people. The flesh of Leviathan is said to be so magnificent that it will nourish the righteous, those who have remained faithful, as they partake in the divine celebration of God's victory over evil. As we can see, the Leviathan's role in the end times is not just as a villain to be defeated, but as an essential part of the cosmic drama that will restore the world to its intended state, one of peace, abundance, and divine favor. But the Leviathan's influence is not confined to the Hebrew Bible alone. Its presence extends into other religious and mythological traditions, often reshaping itself according to the needs and beliefs of different cultures. In Christianity, the Leviathan is seen as a symbol of Satan or the devil. The imagery of the great serpent or dragon is deeply embedded in Christian theology, particularly in the book of Revelation. There, Satan is depicted as a great dragon, whose defeat signals the final victory of Christ over the forces of evil. The imagery of Leviathan as a dragon-like creature is closely tied to these visions of apocalypse, illustrating the universal nature of this archetype. The serpent as a symbol of sin, chaos, and rebellion against God. The connection between Leviathan and Satan is particularly evident in the New Testament, where Revelation 12:9 refers to the great dragon as that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. Here, the Leviathan is not just a mythological creature of ancient times, but a representation of the forces of evil that continue to threaten the world. Its defeat will mark the final cleansing of the earth, the triumph of Christ's reign, and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. In Islamic tradition, the idea of the Leviathan is not as prominent, but a similar creature, known as Iblis, the devil, is a force of evil. While the image of Leviathan doesn't appear explicitly in the Quran, its symbolic representation of chaos and rebellion finds a parallel in Iblis's refusal to bow to God's will. Like the Leviathan, Iblis is ultimately destined for destruction, symbolizing the eternal battle between divine order and chaos. The Leviathan's impact on art, literature, and culture cannot be overstated. Over the centuries, it has inspired countless works of literature, ranging from biblical commentaries to epic poems. One of the most notable examples is The Leviathan, a political treatise written by Thomas Hobbes in 1651. Hobbes used the name Leviathan to describe the power of a sovereign ruler, arguing that a strong central authority was needed to prevent society from descending into chaos, much like the chaos represented by the biblical Leviathan. The creature's symbolism of chaos and its ultimate defeat resonates not only within religious contexts, but also in the secular world. The name Leviathan has come to represent any large, uncontrollable force, whether in nature, politics, or even the modern corporate world. It serves as a reminder of the power of these forces, and of the necessity for order, control, and ultimately, redemption. From the ancient biblical texts to modern-day interpretations, the Leviathan continues to embody the tension between order and chaos, between the divine and the profane. Its story reminds us of the precarious balance of power in our world, a balance that, in the end, will always be governed by a force greater than ourselves. As the Bible teaches, the Leviathan will be vanquished, the chaos subdued, and peace will reign. And perhaps in our own lives, the image of the Leviathan challenges us to confront the forces of disorder and destruction that lurk beneath the surface, reminding us that the divine struggle for peace is a battle we must all take part in. If you enjoy this content, please consider liking the video and following my channel. Until next time, this was Life Uncovered.